The name of the movie is Gold. The story of the film begins with a poor person named Virgil who was traveling by train to work in a company. This company is located in an isolated desert area. The train stops at one of the stations, so Virgil gets off and watches the desert area and is surprised by the high temperature and dry climate. He goes to get a taxi to take him to the company's location in the desert. A driver agrees to take Virgil to the company's location, and they agree on a certain amount. The driver, in the middle of the road, tells him that the cost of the trip will be higher than the previously agreed amount. He tells him that they have agreed on a lesser amount, but the driver tells him that the journey is long and tiring for him, and that if he refuses to give him the amount, he must go down in the desert. He was forced to pay the amount because he was in the middle of the desert and there were no people or cars to help him. He discovered that the driver was taking advantage of him due to his lack of knowledge of the area. During the trip, Virgil feels hot and dry, so he asked the driver to turn on the air conditioning in the car, but the car driver refused, on the grounds that if he turned it on, the car would break down in the desert and that there would be no one to help them. In the meantime, the car tire has a problem, so they stop in order to replace the car tire, but Virgil is the one who changed the car tire because he wants to reach the company as soon as possible. He notices that there is a dog eating an injured dog, so he decides to go to help the injured dog, but the driver throws a stone at the injured dog and kills it. Virgil was furious at what the driver had done. Then they continue their journey until night falls upon them, and they decide to rest until morning. The driver talks to Virgil and asks him why he came to a different country and to work in this isolated place from the world. He tells him that he felt that life is difficult in his country and that getting a job is almost impossible, and he saw an advertisement for the company, so he decided to come to this place and work in it. The driver tells him that working in this company is very difficult and not everyone has the ability to handle this work. Virgil tells the driver that no matter how hard the work is, he will bear it so that he can get the money. The next morning they continue their journey towards the company. The driver was feeling tired because he had not slept enough, so he gave the car to Virgil, who felt the heat of the air, so he decided to turn on the air conditioning. The car breaks down in the middle of the road, so the driver wakes up, who was angry with Virgil because he warned him not to turn on the air conditioning. Virgil tries to calm the driver and tells him that he couldn't stand the heat of the weather, so he turned on the air conditioning. The driver tries to fix the car while Virgil goes to relieve himself. He notices that something is shining in the desert. He was curious to see what that glittered thing was. When he removes the dust from this thing, he discovers that it is gold, so he was shocked and felt very happy because he found this precious treasure. He asks the driver to come and tell him that he has found the gold. The driver laughs and tells him that this gold is not real. He tells him that he will burn the gold with fire, and if its color changes to black, then it is not real gold, and if it remains on its color, then it is real gold. The driver set fire to the gold, but the gold remained intact, meaning that it was real gold. They were happy because they found real gold and they dug to get the gold out. They find a large amount of gold and decided to withdraw it in order to get it out of the hole, but they could not because the size of the gold was large. They decided to withdraw gold by car, but also to no avail because the amount of gold is large. They go to fetch firewood to light a fire because the night has approached and the fire keeps wolves and predators away from them. After they lit the fire, they were happy because they would be rich. In the middle of the night, the driver tells Virgil that someone has to go to town to get the excavator. He tells him that he knows a friend of his who owns an excavator, so he asks Virgil to go to him and bring the excavator. But Virgil refused because he did not trust him because the driver tried to take advantage of him at the beginning of the trip. The next morning, the driver gave Virgil water and food before he left and went to get the excavator. He also gave him the phone and told him that when he reached the station, he would call him. He also tells him to be careful because the place is dangerous at night. The driver goes to fetch the excavator. A man goes to the place of gold in order to cover it with dirt, and if someone comes, he will not be able to see it. He makes himself a simple tent and brings firewood. When he saw a poisonous scorpion approaching him, he knew that he was in a dangerous place and that the coming days would be harsh and difficult. At night, he felt hungry and wanted to eat, but he heard the sound of predatory dogs that were close to him, so he carried a piece of wood that was on fire and threatened the dogs with it, so the dogs turned away from him. The next morning, he started to feel tired, and then he heard the phone ringing, so he went quickly to answer the call. When he got to the phone, the connection was cut off. Then he covers gold with stones. He then starts exploring the desert to find something to use. Indeed, he found a crashed plane in the desert. He is sitting inside this plane and felt comfortable. He decided to take the chair from the plane and some of its wreckage in order to benefit from it and protect himself from the sun's rays. He was watching gold and thinking to himself when he would get rich. Then he goes to the place of gold and holds a stone in his hand and strikes the gold and actually breaks a piece of gold and keeps it. Then he receives a call from the driver who tells him that the car has broken down and he is trying to fix it, and he also tells him that he will be 2 days late to reach the excavator and he asked him to be patient until he reaches him. He tells the driver that he was able to get a piece of gold, but the driver tells him that this piece is not enough and that he must stay in his place and close to the place of gold. Meanwhile, he notices that a car is coming towards him. He was able to take the piece of gold with him and go with them, but he was greedy for the large amount of gold. He decided to stay and not go with them. At night, predatory dogs begin to attack him, but he manages to scare the dogs away by using a piece of wood burning with fire. He stayed up all night because he was afraid of wild dogs and wolves. When he entered the tent to sleep, he discovered that the sun's rays had burnt his face and distorted him, and he also discovered that water and food were running out. When he was drinking water, he saw a snake approaching him, so he decided to kill it in order to eat it, but he stumbled upon his bottle of water and a large amount spilled out of it. He decided to go to the plane to find something that could be useful. He notices that someone is approaching him, so he hides inside the plane. This person was asking Virgil if he needed help. Then he discovers that it is a girl and she gives him snake meat to eat, but he was afraid that the meat was poisoned, so he decided not to eat it. She offers him help, but he tells her he doesn't need help. She asks him why he came to the desert, but he did not answer her. Then the girl goes towards the gold, and he pursues her to prevent her from reaching the place of gold. She tells him that she wants to go to see his tent, but he tells her that the plane is his place and that he will leave the plane for her to live in, and then he goes towards the gold place, but he discovers that the girl is chasing him. She tells him that he killed someone and fled, and she asks him about how he got to the desert. He tells her that he has come to work in a company and he had some problems that led him to be in this place. He tells her that a friend will come to him and take him to the company's place, but she didn't believe what he was saying and told him that he was lying to her. She notices symptoms of fatigue on him and tells him that his head and body will ache as well because of the heat of the weather, and that after a short while he will begin to delirium. She tells him that these are symptoms of dry brain and she warns him of this thing. Meanwhile, the girl continues her walk towards the place of gold while he was chasing her. She didn't notice the gold and started asking him again about how he got to this place. Virgil was angry and asks her to leave him. He was noticing that the girl's face was distorted by the sun's rays. She told him he was a liar. He felt angry and beat her and killed her, and then decided to bury her and started digging a grave for her to bury her. Before burying the girl, he took all the things from her that he might benefit from. After burying her, he goes to rest, but he notices that the dogs are digging the grave. After that, he digs the grave and takes out the body and removes it from the place, and then he collects wood and burns the body, and then he buries the rest of the body. The next day, the driver calls him and tells him that he has brought the excavator and towed it with his car, but the speed of the car is slow because of the weight of the excavator. He also tells him that he has bought a phone and can call him at any time. The driver heard Virgil talking incomprehensible words and learned that Virgil began to rave, and then asked him about water and food if he had run out, and he asked him to be patient until he reached him. Then he goes to fetch firewood in order to protect himself from predatory dogs, but a strong dust storm occurs, so he goes to hide inside the tent. But the storm was so strong that a tree trunk hit him on the head while he lost consciousness. When he woke up the next day, he found himself buried in the sand with the trunk of the tree in his stomach. He was moving with difficulty and started looking for his little gold pieces. After he finds the gold piece, he loses consciousness. After a short while, he wakes up, lights a fire, takes out the trunk of the tree from his stomach, and tries to treat the wound. It was so painful that he lost consciousness for the second time. When he woke up, he saw the girl he killed standing in front of him, and this girl helped him and gave him water. He knows he's starting to delirium. Then he receives a call from the driver telling the driver that he killed her, but he can see her giving him water. Then he watches the girl who was asking him if he needed water or food, but he tells her that he doesn't want anything from her. But she tells him that he must drink and eat and that if he stays like this he will die. But he refuses to help her, and then she asks him if he saw her sister. He knew that the girl he killed was the sister of this girl and they were twins. Then he notices the dogs digging the girl's grave, and then he loses consciousness for the third time. Then when he wakes up, he notices that the flames surround him, and he knew that the sister of the girl he killed did so that the predatory dogs would not attack him. Then he called the driver, who told him that he was close to him while watching the fire. But in the meantime, predatory dogs are close to Virgil and start attacking him. Virgil succumbs to the dogs that begin to devour him. He was watching the advertisement of the company he wanted to work for. Then we noticed that the driver was close to him while watching him and did not help him. He wanted Virgil to die so that he could get the gold alone. When he made sure that Virgil had died and that the dogs had left, he decided to go to the place of gold, but when he reached the place, he received an arrow in his chest. And the person who killed the driver is the sister of the girl killed by Virgil. She took revenge on them because they were the reason for killing her sister. They died because of their greed and greed for gold. Here the movie ends. Thank you for watching.